parte 3. Lo siento muchos, pero cortamos en la última. So we had part 1, which was reviewing our preterite tense verbs and a few of the irregulars we've learned so far. And those were, remember, in our foldables that we made, those were the 3 outside section. You had the preterite regulars with the signals, dar, ir, ser, ver, and then you had zar, kar, gar in the 3rd column. Now we're working on the inside of our foldable. In the very left column, remember, we talked about our V group. All of the verbs that change to a V. We had tener turns to tuve, andar turns to anduve, and estar turns to estuve. Our center column is what we call the J Grupo, okay, the J group. We notice that many of these verbs end in CIR, like traducir, which is to translate, conducir, to drive, decir, to say or to tell, and producir. And also in this J group, we also have the verb traer, which is to bring. And remember, this is to bring something, not someone. Each one of those verbos had a J in it, okay? And then these were the endings for our J group. Remember that the only difference between the endings of our V group and our J group was in the 3rd person plural here. And it was eron instead of ieron. Okay, please see video part 2 for a full explanation of the first 2 groups. Okay, then we had our 3rd group, and we just call it our weirdo group. These are 6 verbs, and you have to just memorize which of these 6 verbs go in this group. Okay, we already on part 2 of the video spoke in detail about hacer, and hacer, to do or to make, remember, turns to is, and we nunca pronuncia la H, okay, no creepers, his. And you will have heard this in class when we said, ¿Qué hiciste durante el fin de semana? What did you do during the weekend? Okay? We have querer turns to quis, Q-U-I-S. We have poder turns to pud, and poner turns to pus. Now, remember, these 2 are going to be very easy to mix up. So the way we remember this is poder has a D in it, and its new orthographic stem has a D in it. Poder turns to pud, and then the other one is process of elimination. Okay? And remember, poner is not just to put or to place, but this also was like to set the table, poner la mesa. We also came up with poner la música, to put on music. Poner la radio, to turn on the radio. Okay? We have venir. Venir turns to vin. Venir turns to vin, V-I-N, which we talked about, and we were on saber. Now, saber, remember, as you know, is to know knowledge. To know knowledge or know how to do something. But if we think about this verb, to know, in the past tense, you don't really know it's something, and it's a completed finite action. When we talk about saber, in the past tense, when we're using it in the preterite tense, remember our preterite tense, like we talked about, is used for completed actions, okay? So saber is actually going to be to find out, okay? And saber, to know, we always remember our orthographic change. You know what's up. You know what's sup. Soup. S-U-P. Soup is going to be your orthographic change for saber, okay? Now, these endings will be e, iste, o, imos, istes, ieron. So if you take a moment and look at your notes, look through the inside of your foldable, this is, right here, we have exactly the same endings for our weirdo group as our V group at the very beginning, as our V group. Okay, the only change you're going to notice here in 3rd person, I have a little star and it says iso. Only the 3rd person singular of hacer, to do or to make, is going to be iso. And this is just an irregular one that you have to memorize. Okay? So we have our 3 funnels, okay, of our funnel verbs. And now what you guys are going to be doing today in class is diagramming your irregular verbs. Okay? You're going to be diagramming your irregular verbs. So let's take a look at the rubrico that you guys are going to be working with. And then I'll show you a few example projects. Okay, so let's take a look at the rubrico. So if you want to zoom in just on this top portion here. Okay, so we have, and this is, if you want to zoom in right on the desk there, we have el diagrama de los verbos de cambio ortográfico, our orthographic stem changers. Okay, this is our student-generated rubric that we came up with between our second period and fourth periods. Okay, so el proyecto incluye el nombre en español y tu apellido. You guys decided that you're going to give 1 point for putting your name on your project. Your nombre en español with your last name. Okay, step number 2, you have to conjugar, I don't care where, but somewhere on your project, you need to conjugar los verbos ir, ser, dar, and ver. Remember, this whole thing is to be done in the pretérito. All of this is to be done in the pretérito. Okay, and remember, whenever we conjugate a verb, you need to write down dar, define dar. Dar means to give, or in the past tense, it's gave, and then write down each of the forms of that verb. Okay, step number, and you get 5 points for each of those, having each of those somewhere in your diagram. Step number 3, you have to include verbs that end in zar, kar, gar. Remember, our zar turns to say, our kar turns to k. What kar? And our gar turns to gay. Now, notice I said, what do they change to, and in what forms do they change? Do they change in multiple forms or all the forms? When do those zar, kar, gars change? Okay, then you must include the 3 groups of funnel verbs that we've learned. The V group, the J group, the Jota group, and the Weirdo group. Okay, for each group you must include the infinitives, what the infinitive changes to, and the meaning of the infinitive. So just like we did on the board. For example, in the V group you have tener, it means to have, and it changes to tuv. Andar means to walk, and it changes to anduv, etc. You do not have to write out every single form of these groups. You just need to include what infinitives are in each group, what they mean, and what do they change to. Okay, we are using a very similar but slightly adapted based on your feedback scale to grade our content and our precision and the attractiveness and creativity of the project. Okay, now let's talk about some examples in the past. Okay, here this person has a little mono. If you want to just pull out. Okay, they have each vine. This was their Weirdo group. This is their Jota group, and then they did their V group coming down the middle. They have dar on the side here, ser and ir here. And they lost points because they forgot the verb ver on there. They also don't have the meanings of each of the verbs, so they would have lost points for not having the meanings of each infinitive. Okay? This one did Batman. Okay? And they did the 3 groups here. They have the V group, the Weirdo group, and the J group. And then around Batman's symbol, they conjugated ir and ser, dar, and ver. Okay, that would be another option. We've had a lot of people do variations on clouds and flowers and sunshines. Here, they did all their Weirdo group was the sun. I've seen people do like the Jota group, okay, where they would include all of the verbs that are in the Jota group, and then each of the raindrops is the ending, okay? Or people will do flowers, where maybe the center of the flower is one of the groups, and each of the petal includes the infinitives for that group. Okay, another person did up, okay, from the movie Up. They have their balloons, and they separated their balloons into different categories, okay, for each of the 3 groups here. But you are going to notice this person lost points because they don't have dar, ir, ser, or ver conjugated, and they don't have the meanings of the infinitives. But they did a beautiful job on the creativity. Okay, you guys will have the rest of today in class to work on this, and these will probably be due on Monday, I'm thinking. That way you guys have plenty of time to work on these on Monday. So, buena suerte y adiós. Ciao.